This afternoon, we have Michelle, who is going to lead us through some meditation and mindfulness, going to tell us some research behind it, lead us through some practices. And also just keep in mind, I will send you a reminder email that Monday evening, we will have a 15 to 20-minute practice with her based on what we learned tonight from her. So Michelle, I will turn it over to you to tell a little bit about yourself and take it from here.
Right. Thank you so much, Jamie. And to all of you that are on this experience with us tonight, I just want to thank you for your service. If you're in the healthcare profession or in the education field, my gratitude to you for what you're doing. I retired as an educator after 30-something years in education. And I will say that this is a practice I wish I had learned and practiced when I was a teacher, a principal, and a central office staff member. So today it's very much part of my life. I do want to say a little bit about the practice of mindfulness, which is about meditating. It's also about being aware in the present moment, just as it is. It does help reduce stress, or it can for some and many people. It does lower blood pressure. It helps with anxiety. It can also help with finding ways to sleep and some ease in your life. So, which is an area when I was a principal, I have to admit I did not practice, nor did I experience it often. So I want to welcome you and invite you to approach this as an experiment. And if some of you have practice, I would love to know what your practice is like, what got you to mindfulness, or what your interests are. As Jamie said tonight, I really want to introduce some of the science behind it. We are going to do some practices. It's always helpful to see the faces, but that's up to you. I understand some of you may prefer not to be on the camera, but I do want to say when we are practicing, and when I refer to practice, I mean formal meditation of sitting and concentrating, almost exercising this muscle of the mind. If at any time you get triggered or stressed, what I want you to do is to stop and stand up, maybe walk around, look at things around the room. In the absence of seeing you physically, I just want to make sure to give you that suggestion. Mindfulness is not therapy. So this is not about fixing anybody or telling anybody what they should or shouldn't do. It really is a practice for the self. And we're all perfectly imperfect. And so it's just a tool for some people, really for many people that practice. And so a little bit about me, just quickly. I was a principal for 12 years. I was in the classroom prior to that. I went to the nonprofit sector, and then I went to central office in Houston Independent School District, and started practicing before I retired, and it changed who I am, changed how I live my life. So just a quick note, I want to give you the definition of mindfulness and how we teach it. We are in the process of training our mind. In other words, we're going to learn a little bit about the brain activity and what our mind does, and the ability to train it to focus and pay attention to the present moment just as it is. And we do that with an openness, a curiosity, and a kindness. But that's the approach. I remember all my years of teaching, telling kids to pay attention and not even recognizing or realizing what a challenge that is. When I started paying attention to my own mind activity, I realized how much I drift. I want to ask, anybody remember or had an incident that you've driven to work and had no idea how you got there?
Yep.
Or read a book, you know, you're studying for something, or you're learning about something, or you're reading. I see the thumbs up. That's a great cue. Thank you. You're reading a book and you kind of get to the end of the page and you think, did I just read this? So we have an ability to be doing one thing and then our mind is somewhere else completely. And the practice of mindfulness is truly about concentration and learning to train this muscle. Yeah, man, I see this mindless eat a bag of chips. I was very good at that. In fact, eating ice cream and wondering where this gallon of ice cream came from that I didn't remember enjoying. So this is, it is a practice that can help make us aware, right? I mean, it's a choice and it is a practice. And the more we practice, the more we become aware of things. It's not that my mind doesn't still drift. It's not that I don't get lost in thought. It's that as soon as I'm aware of it, I have tools to come back to the moment. So I want to just reference a science, some research that was done by Harvard University in 2010. And it's one of the things that has given some leverage to why people practice, why people get curious about it and want to explore it. But they provided over 2,500 people from across the country, across really internationally, all ages, varying, differences, ethnically, culturally, age, etc. And they all got an app on their phone that would buzz randomly. And it would ask them what they were doing, if they were engaged in what they were doing, meaning, are you paying attention to what you're doing? And then the other question was, and how happy are you? So one of the things that they found from this app was, based on the results and the activities, was that the mind wanders based on people's responses, at least 2,500 people, and they've repeated this study again and again, is that the mind drifts about 50% of the time. So even in this short time period that we've been together, some of you may be thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, or the lessons you have to do later tonight in order to prepare for tomorrow, or thinking about what happened earlier. You might be reliving a conversation you had with a friend or a colleague or a client, but you're not here. So part of it is learning how to become present again and again. Knowing that the habit of the mind, I'm well over 60, so my mind's habit has drifted for a long time before I started practicing mindfulness. Now it still drifts, but I catch it faster and faster. So a couple things. The other piece that they found in the study is that most people who were present with whatever it might be that they were doing, whether it was digging a ditch, grading papers, writing papers, reading articles, studying, being strategic, whatever it was they were doing, those who were present in the activity tended to be happier. In other words, there was a general sense of well-being that even if I'm digging a ditch and I really physically don't want to be doing that, just being present and saying, here I am, this is my role, this is what I'm doing, I was happier. And so that's one of the things we want to go to is how do we be present and have some ease in whatever it is around us. And we're going to get there by practicing more and more. A few things about how your mind works. And this might be something you start to track. My type A personality in the past, I certainly did it early on in my practice because I was curious about it, is where your mind goes when it drifts. So you can begin to notice if your mind goes to the past, things that have already happened and you're reliving them, you want them to be different. You had this conversation, wish, could have said, how could have it gone different? So you keep having that conversation of rumination of the past. Or it goes to the future. I know Houston recently, or a lot of Texas had a major Nicholas came through. And for some people, it could have been even before the Nicholas hit, is that thought of what if I lose power? What if I don't have enough water? What if I get flooded? So it hasn't happened yet, but I'm already projecting and thinking about the future before it comes. And for some, it may just be, what am I doing after this call? And so you can begin to notice your thoughts as to whether they go to the past or they go to the future. They possibly may be judgmental thoughts, questioning like, what's the board in the back of my, Zoom, or why isn't somebody else on the camera, or where is somebody? But making judgments about things that you may or may not have any answer on, but we do it. And it happens very quickly without any of us even sometimes being aware of the judgments. The other is we may compare, may look at someone's outfit and say, oh, I wish I had that, or she's got a better outfit than I do, or he has a better outfit than I do. Just start to play with that. Notice when your thoughts drift and notice where they go. Past to the future, maybe judging, maybe comparing. But we can also get on in autopilot. Some of you admitted eating, a bag of chips. I admitted eating a gallon of ice cream. I think most of us have driven. I saw some thumbs up when, driving on autopilot, not even being aware how we got from point A to point B. What we want to do is shift from that to being fully awake and fully aware. And just notice how it shifts in the body. I do want to give you an easy way to remember the definition of mindfulness, COAL, C-O-A-L. So C is being curious. So noticing the mind if it's gone off and just instead, maybe, maybe not. Could be true, maybe not. The O is being open. So being open, ever have a conversation with someone and you start to hear them and you already know what you want to say? They haven't even finished what they're saying, but you've already got a response. You've got your own story. With mindfulness, instead of having that story in your own head, it's truly just being open and listening. The other is the awareness and being present. So C is curious, the O is being open, the A is having an awareness in the presence, and the L is for loving kindness. And I would offer for many of us possibly that loving ourselves first, we talk about it. Jamie and I both talked, we know examples of people saying, take care of yourself. And, your bosses or your leaders or your role models may say that. And yet, if you watch them carefully, they aren't the best examples. What I would offer today is very much important for me to take care of myself first and foremost in order to give the best to others. And so integrating mindfulness into those traditional self-care of, eating, being aware when you're eating, I mean, I was a teacher. I had that 30-minute, really 20 minutes or 15 minutes to eat, and I got good at it. Never knew what I was eating, but I could do it. So eating and being aware what we're eating. When it's time to rest. Um, Thumbs up on anyone who's been exhausted and you lay down to go to sleep or rest, and all of a sudden your mind is planning meetings, writing lessons, thinking about where I'm going next, all the emails I need to respond to. You are not resting. You're probably insomnia, yes. You're feeling your body's activated, your mind is thinking of all these things. The other is, I would imagine some of you do have social events and you may get with some people and then you think, you're not even there. You're really thinking of all the other places where you might want to be instead, or you're wondering, why did I agree to this? So the question is how do we become that curious, open, aware of being present with a loving kindness for ourselves and for others, and come back to the moment? The secondary stress from students, and I know today there's a lot, not only for your students, but for individuals that are on this practice with us tonight. So I spent a lot of time visiting doctors, and I would have migraines. I had severe shoulder pain, neck pain. There was some sort of pain, and I always thought they could just fix it. Today's doctor visits, and for teenagers also, 85% of them are based on stress and anxiety. They're not necessarily physical ailments. I was one of those statistics. I would always go thinking something's wrong, and really it was all my own stress-induced activity, of a lot of it in my head, of not being able to eat mindfully, not even being aware whether I ate or didn't eat, certainly not getting the sleep I needed or the exercise, and the social activity. So those are going to be some things that we're going to talk and weave through as we go into this practice. We're going to start with a practice right now just to get us all into the space. And when I talk about practice, it is meditation. For us, mindful meditation is secular. It is not associated with any belief or faith-based. It certainly came out of the work from Buddhism, but there's a lot that has been taken into the secular aspect, especially in the medical field and the military field. A lot of the sports groups now practice mindfulness. It is more and more mainstream, and part of it is based on the research and the science behind it. So find your seat, and when I say seat, I'm going to ask you to make sure that you're well balanced and supported. So your feet are on the floor. If you're like me and you're used to crossing your legs, I'm going to ask that you consider uncrossing them and getting your feet really on the floor, and maybe you're barefoot. For those of you that practice regularly, if you practice on a cushion, please do so. But what's important is posture and just feeling your body. So we are going to spend time in our body also. So feet flat. And then I want you to just feel the body, your buttocks on the chair, whether there's a cushion or it's a soft or hard chair. And your back is straight, and notice how your shoulders might come up and let them drop down. Just notice the shoulders. There might be tight tension. We're going to talk about sensations in the body. So just feeling the back being straight, but not rigid and tight. And then your crown of your head being up and maybe slightly tucking the chin. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes. And if not, just gaze downward. I want you to listen to my voice and just like this is an experiment. Try this and join me in taking some slow, deep breaths in through your nostrils. And as if you can see the air entering, follow the air entering your nostrils and maybe flowing into the chest and all the way down into your belly. And then exhaling slowly through your mouth as if you're blowing through a straw. And repeating, breathing in through the nostrils, deep into the belly, and exhaling through the mouth like you're blowing through a straw. Relaxing the body, letting gravity hold you, keeping your core and your back strong, and allowing the breath to enter and to flow freely into your body and out. There's no work here. There's nothing for you to do. Your body knows exactly how to breathe. You are simply paying attention to this process of being present with the breath, following it from the nostrils into the chest and the belly, the rising, the falling, expanding and contracting. Maybe you notice where it's most evident, the nostrils, or the chest, or your belly. Staying focused on one of those areas, knowing how your body feels. Now you may just be breathing naturally through your nostrils, in and out. No two breaths are the same, possibly shallow, deep, erratic, or even. Maybe you're noticing how it changes. No two breaths are the same. Maybe there's stillness between each breath. When your mind wanders, as it will, notice it, maybe label it thinking, planning, wandering, and come back to the breath. And when you're ready, I want you to open your eyes and join me in this space. And maybe take a moment, not long, just to write how you're feeling. What did you notice? Might be that you were nervous, scattered, antsy, bored, anxious, or calm. Just kind of jot in what you more relaxed. Anyone feel differently than relaxed? Feeling more centered, concentrating on my core. Okay, so using the core to concentrate. Anybody notice their mind drifting a lot? You stayed focused. Yeah. Okay, so the mind was drifting. Mind does drift. Keeping note, remember, mind will drift about 50% of the time. Staying focused. So mindfulness is a tool about staying focused and knowing. So mind drifts, knowing that the mind does drift. It's a habit. it kind of goes on its own when we're not paying attention to it. Just like reading the book and not getting to the end of the page and not remembering what you read, or driving somewhere. So we're all alike in that. Our minds drift. Research has shown that we can generate now, with all the MRIs that can be done and the tracking what happens in the brain waves when we're doing certain things, is we know that we can drift. We also know that thoughts can generate some anxiety without even knowing why. Our body can shift. So we are going to pay attention to our body and the sensations that happen when we start connecting thoughts with our body and our body with thoughts. So one of the reasons we practice what we just did, which was only a few minutes, by the way. So for some of you, you felt a little more relaxed. Others noticed the mind drifting. And of course, our minds are always going to drift. It's hard, we can't turn them off necessarily. There is some evidence and comments that say we generate between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day, just constantly. Things are firing at us. We walk in, anybody walk down the street and smell something, and a memory takes us to, for me, bread. If I smell bread, it takes me to my grandmother. Or I smell certain foods, it takes me to a memory of when I was having dinner with someone. Yeah, no wonder I'm exhausted, is one of the comments. So when you think of that, and the mind just goes, it's a gift. There's times when it helps us plan, it helps us strategize, it takes us, it helps us get from one place to the other. And yet there's so many things it does that we're not even aware. So what I want to introduce us to is this formal practice that we just did, sitting and meditating, and then the informal practice. And the formal practice helps us become present during our day. Anybody ever get an email and before they opened it, they've already got like pain in their chest or tightening in the shoulder? I see hands going up. Just because, unfortunately, some of those emails might have been mine at one time. So learning how those things can affect us, when we become aware of it, we can utilize the tool to kind of sit back and do some practice to come to the present and say, okay, that's an email from Michelle. The last time it wasn't such a good email, but the reality is I don't know if it's not going to be the same email. It could be different. Maybe not. But knowing that our body reacts just from seeing a name on our emails or opening up emails in the morning, and seeing 100 and just thinking this is impossible. So I want to help you by giving you some tools to practice. And Jamie mentioned, I do want to say we're going to have practices on Monday, I think at 6. So it's going to be short, 15 to 20 minutes, just to kind of go back and do it. And the more you practice, you begin to get a sense of how it feels for yourself. It's one thing for me to say it works for me, but this is about you and taking care of yourself and finding those moments. Jamie has promised that if there are questions that I don't answer and you have, I'm going to get those and I will make sure you get responses. I'm also sending a handout that will give a lot of the information that I'm talking about tonight. So you'll get that in the next day or two from me. I do want to reference, I did share that the practice originated from the Buddhism practice of meditation. And one of the people that when you look into mindfulness about how it came into the secular environment was by John Kabat-Zinn. He is a practicing Buddhist. He was at UMass General Hospital, and in the 70s, he had been working with patients who had chronic pain. Others had psoriasis, and there was something, there was only so much medication that he felt a patient should be taking when they have chronic pain, and wanted to see if the practice of meditation, which he had been practicing for quite some time, could be beneficial. So they started the research with a course called Mindful-Based Stress Reduction. It is an 8-week course, still taught, takes special certification to teach it. It's a lot of body work and a lot of guided meditation. And what they found after the study, overwhelmingly, is that the majority of the people felt better. There were still people who experienced the pain, but their relationship with the pain and the suffering from the chronic aspect had improved. So some of this is, and we'll do some body work in one of the other classes, I think it's in class 4, associated with chronic pain and pain in the body, is how to embrace it and be curious, open, and approach it with a loving kindness of almost welcoming it. And we'll start to learn how things aren't always constant. Everything changes. And that'll be an ongoing theme. The other thing I do want to show you, and you might do this yourself, I want to give you an example of our brain, and this is a fist. And if you thought of the knuckles at the front, as the prefrontal cortex, most of you, I'm sure, are aware that the prefrontal cortex is all about logic, reasoning, your executive thinking, it's the strategy, it's the planning we have. And here, and I'm going to offer, is the amygdala. And some of you may remember what the amygdala is. It is our fight, freeze, or flee, right? So when something happens, some of you, thumbs up when you see an email from, could be me or anyone else, you all of a sudden get this, how am I going to, what's in this email? Or today it could be driving in traffic. You're running late for a meeting, or you're running late for the Zoom call, or, all kinds. It could be social media. And this happens for kids. It could be the pings of your iPhone. Who's texting, what's happening. We get triggered. Dan Siegel at UCLA is another person who has done a lot in the area of mindfulness. And my certification came out of UCLA, but he refers to it as flipping a lid. So as soon as we go from the prefrontal cortex to this amygdala, this reactionary state, we are activated. It could be our heart palpitates. It could be we start getting sweaty. It could be our palms get moist or wet. It could be all kinds of things. When I'm in Houston and I hear about a tropical storm or a hurricane, I immediately start to feel it in my chest. And then I have to remind myself to come back here. And I know I've done everything I possibly could. I have my supplies, I have my batteries, I have my candles, I have, food, and I have water. But my initial is to get activated. So we want to become more and more aware of what happens when we get activated, and how do we come back to this reasoning, this logic, and this thoughtfulness so that we can respond versus react. Thumbs up if anybody has said something they regretted. Many times. I have, let the email go before, my quick response, somebody says something and I react. If you're in the classroom or at a school setting, you probably see it on the playground. Somebody says something and somebody reacts. There's a lot of work being done today with veterans. We train them to be reactionary to protect our lives. And when they come back into the mainstream, that reactionary behavior isn't appropriate. And so retraining, from this fight aspect to being able to respond in a thoughtful, meaningful way has to do with getting the mind and rewiring it and training it not to flip the lid, not to flip and, either freeze or flee or fight. So that's what we're working on. And again, I want to just say, if there's questions about this, let me know. And the handout that you receive in the next day or two will give you some background on that. So I want to invite us again. We're going to do a little bit of a different experience in how we were breathing. So I want to invite you to get into your seat and practice, remembering it's about feet on the floor. So this is very much about experiences. It's easy to read about this. It's better to practice. So feet on the floor, noticing your buttocks on the chair. You may even notice whether your chair is comfortable or not as comfortable as you might have thought it was. Back is straight, not rigid. And maybe notice your shoulders. See if you can let them rest down your back. And again, tucking the chin. And of course, if you're comfortable, closing your eyes. And we're going to notice, I want you just to let your body breathe. You don't have to do anything. This is not a time to do. We're just being present. Listen to my voice. And you may notice the thoughts. Of course, there are thoughts. They always are there. And you can notice and label it. Thinking. Sometimes it makes it easier to let it go. Maybe it's one you shelve for later. This is the time for you to simply follow your breath. The natural breath of breathing in through the nostrils and out. Maybe you feel it in the chest or the belly. Now I'm going to invite you to try a different type of breathing exercise as a way of just noticing what happens when you do this. We're going to breathe in through our nostrils to a count of 4. We're going to pause for 2 with the air in our belly. And then we're going to release for 5 through our mouth. So we're going to breathe in through our nostrils to a count of 4. I will guide you. We're going to pause for 2. And then we're going to exhale slowly for a count of 5. I want you to exhale everything in your body right now. And then inhale through the nostrils. 4. And pause for 2. Inhale for 5. Inhale for 4. Pause for 2. Exhale for 5 through your mouth. Again, inhale for 4. Pause for 2. Exhale through your mouth for 5. One more time. Inhale for 4. Pause. Exhale for 5. And now return to your natural breath and just notice how you're feeling. Notice what your thoughts are around that experience. And when you're ready, join me in this space. And if you're willing, write in the chat what you noticed, what that was like for you. Could be that you experienced dizziness or challenge with the breathing that deeply and holding your breath. Clearer? Okay, good. Did anyone get dizzy or experience shortness of breath? Felt like tension melted away. That's a nice thing. Felt a lot lighter, more aware of body and breathing, more concentration. Thank you. Great. So stress held in my neck and shoulders started to melt. Aware of my breath. I was in control and relaxed. Nice. So what we did, great, relaxed. Part of this is we engaged what is called the vagus nerve. And when we're filling our body with oxygen and breathing in, we are not in that activation of fight, flight, or freeze. So if you think of when you get tense, it's very difficult. You almost stop breathing or you hold your breath without even knowing it. I sometimes do an exercise class and they always say, remember to breathe. And when you look around, it's called the vagus nerve and it is VAGUS, and it will be in the notes that you get. Yeah, when I'm tense, I hold my breath. You're not alone. It happens to all of us. It's how it's how when you get activated, we all tense up. If we're ready to fight, we have to use that energy to fight. Or if I have to run, I need to be ready. And all my body just tenses up and I'm ready to go. The sad thing is today, the activation isn't that we're being chased by a lion or a tiger or a bear. Maybe that's a possibility if we're in certain national forests or out in the wild, but that's not where we are. We tend to get activated by emails, by social media, by the weather, the current aspects of our political stance. Could be the policies that are being implemented or not. So it gets, that's what activates us. And what we did was engage when we're breathing deeply like that. We engage what's called the vagus nerve. So if you think of this as the brain, it is at the back of our skull and it goes down to our tailbone. It encompasses the organs and the body and the torso. So when we're breathing deeply like that and we're exhaling slowly, our bodies feel safe. We're focused, our minds harder to drift and go different places because we're concentrating on our breath. That is one of the first exercises I learned to practice on my own, was this deep breathing, Some people say 3 breaths. For me, it tended to be 4 to 6 breaths where I would take care of myself, even in meetings where somebody would say something and I thought, oh, I'm ready to, and I would just simply quietly by myself breathe in and breathe out, following my breath and getting my mind clear. And instead of reacting, really being able to, again, access that prefrontal cortex, because when we're activated and we flip the lid, we're in a fight mode, or we're frozen and we can't do anything, or we just want to get out. So this is about learning and having some discernment, making a wise decision about how do I want to proceed. And it's a wonderful acronym, and you'll see it in the notes, is STOP. So we stop, and it's a great thing to teach kids. It is like a reset. Somebody said closing the lid. It is a reset. As soon as we are able to breathe and come back, we can activate that prefrontal. So STOP stands for stop, right? Just pause. I mean, and it's seconds, right? People don't even need to know you're doing it. Like all of a sudden you're just like, instead of opening my mouth and yelling, I might just kind of put my hand on my chest and take a couple breaths and decide, so what's my best next move? So I take a breath, I observe what's happening, and then I decide to proceed. So taking a breath may mean 3 to 4 breaths that get me back to the space of, instead of my heart palpitating or my neck up, my shoulders up in my neck, I can take these breaths and I can think, okay, do I really want to respond to this right now? Or can I think differently about it? It's I've been in with teachers in classrooms where stop, kids learning to, I don't know about you, but my parents used to tell me to breathe, and I don't think they understood the science, I have to admit, but that thing of just take some breaths because you're just so hyped up. So just learning to breathe, and if you're working with young kids, learning to help them feel the air breathing into the chest and letting it go. So for me, it's a quick way for me to find my way. So that is a tool I would offer as a way of reminding yourself to practice, or at least try that simple little tool of deep breaths in and slow releases, which really helps. I mean, today I just know to take breaths and do it. When I first started, I could not do a 4 to 5 count. I wasn't used to breathing deep into my stomach. I wasn't used to pausing and then releasing slowly. I wanted to do everything fast, quickly, move on, get going. So it is a practice, and I got better at it. I've learned, but it did take practice. It does help calming. I started by putting Post-its all over my house. So Post-its on the refrigerator. I'm going to talk a little bit about mindful eating. Post-its on the mirror when I was getting up. And instead of, getting in the shower and having 15 meetings in my shower, making those phone calls in my head, thinking of my to-do list, is learning to be present in the fact that I'm having a shower or that I'm really brushing my teeth. One of my first things I learned to do, I don't know if anyone else does this, but I used to take my toothbrush and I would go around the house because, it's a 2-minute, one of the 2-minute Oral-B that does it automatically. And I would be putting dishes away, picking up toys, doing this and that, letting the dog out. I certainly wasn't paying attention to brushing my teeth. And it made me aware that I should be able to stand still for 2 minutes and simply brush my teeth. Shouldn't, that's all I needed to do. We love to think we can multitask, and yet we get exhausted. And so one of the things I tried to do early on was simply stand in my bathroom and brush my teeth for 2 minutes and be aware of me brushing my teeth. In other words, just doing that. It's 2 minutes. Might be something you play with. So yeah, I love this. This is so true. Every silent moment, I feel as though I need to be doing something. We are incredible people. We do things all the time. Think about the term human being. So I want to invite you to practice that love for yourself and begin to become intimate with who you are. And for me, that was the hardest. Was my greatest fear was being alone with myself. And if I wasn't doing something, then I wasn't good enough. I needed to do more. I needed to be better. I needed to check the I's, dot the I's, cross the T's. So I really would love you to continue just playing with it and notice how it helps you feel. Someone mentioned insomnia. Our society is very much known to be sleep deprived. I don't know about you, but I have friends who brag about 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep, and they're proud of it. I mean, I'm not sure I'm happy for them about that. Or we get into bed and we're exhausted. We've had a long day, and immediately our mind starts to get activated. Anybody wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble sleeping? Yeah. I mean, it still happens to me. And there are a couple, we're going to go through a exercise too for that. But, one of the things is the deep breathing. And some of you commented on how you felt relaxed, how you felt rested and focused. Part of what keeps you awake is that your mind is active. And when your mind is active, your body's not going to rest. So part of this is concentrating and exercising the muscle of the mind to give you a chance to rest. So I want to see this. I try an empty mind in the mornings. As soon as I get up and take a shower, it's like I have all these thoughts. Yes, welcome to the world of thinking, right? It's like trying not to think. I do want to offer that for mindfulness, it's not that, and I've never experienced it, so there may be people who do. It's not about entering the mind. At least I've never been able to do it, and it's not my intention to do it. And I would offer that really it's your intention just to pay attention to what's happening. And one of the reasons we concentrate on the breath is because it takes the mind away from drifting, right? It's not that the mind doesn't drift. So every time you notice your mind thinking, that's the practice. It's like, wow, where'd that thought come from? Let me come back to my breath. So we're gonna do another exercise, and then I'm going to tell you a quick story, but I want you to try one more thing with me as part of this practice. And I'm going to try to introduce as many practices during our time so you can get a taste of it and notice how your body feels. So again, sit. And this time, when I want you to, so we're going to go move faster, shoulders down, strong core. And close your eyes. And then just, again, paying attention to your breath. Feeling the temperature, maybe it's warm or cool. Maybe it's stale. being aware of the senses, breathing in and breathing out. A time when there's nothing to do. You are simply breathing. The body knows exactly what to do. You don't have to force it. You don't have to look for it. Just let the body breathe. And whenever the mind drifts, and it will, you notice, thinking. Maybe it's worrying, planning. Just notice. Maybe label it and return to the breath. Breath is always present. Just breathing in and breathing out. Always here for you. And notice when the mind drifts. Of course it drifted. Maybe even smile at the thought. There it goes. It's a habit. And we are simply exercising this muscle of the mind to be in this moment, paying attention, building our focus and ability to stay present, practicing some self-care, breathing in and breathing out. This time I want you to practice and maybe count each breath, the inhale and the exhale as one. The inhale and exhale as two. And try counting to 10. And if the mind drifts, as it will, smile, label it, and come back to the count. If you've lost count, you simply start again with 1. Inhale, exhale. 2. And when you're ready, join me in this space. So, again, notice how you're feeling and think about trying this. If you wake up in the middle of the night, maybe you do a counting system of following the breath. Next week, we're going to do some work in the body, and it'll be another method to help you. I don't want you falling asleep on the Zoom practice, but it is a practice that can be used to help people sleep. So I will share that with you. I want to offer you a story that has helped me, and I continued. I lost track of the count on the last one. It happens. So just being aware of it. Say, wow, I paid enough attention that I forgot my count. Part of it is it's a tool that we can use. You can also use a mantra of, I like to think of clouds drifting in and the wind blowing them out. So clouds drift in and the wind blowing out. Know that the science behind labeling thoughts when they come, if you notice it and you say, oh, I'm ruminating or I'm planning ahead, thinking, it could be just quick. It's like naming the dragon. If you have kids, some people say you name the monster and it's not so scary anymore. So sometimes when we name things of, oh, I'm ruminating, or I'm strategizing, or I'm working on a lesson plan, or I'm talking to myself, it's just labeling it and coming back to the breath. it's a tool. For some people, it works. I tend to just notice, I mean, I try to stay focused on breath, and every time I drift, I catch myself and come back. And we'll do more practices. One of the things that part of mindfulness integrates is equanimity. And what I want to offer is it's cultivating this openness, this ability to, in the call, I said, be curious, open, aware with loving kindness. And too often, our mind has already said, this isn't going to be good. This is not going to be good. It hasn't happened yet, but we've already decided for whatever reason. So when we practice, we become aware of our thoughts, and we try to have this, what's considered steadiness, a balance, an openness of, I really don't know what the outcome's going to be. I don't know what this email is going to be. I know in the past it hasn't been great, but this email could be different, right? For me, when it rains, I have to say, I have to remind myself, I may not, just because it flooded last time doesn't mean it's going to flood again. So I want to, this is just a story out of many different traditions. It's a farmer story. It will be in the notes that you receive from me. But it's about an old farmer who lives outside a village. And he has a teenage child. And the teenage child is a teenager. Kind of wants to play in the fields, do different things, doesn't necessarily help the father with farming and all the chores that are necessary. And of course, all the villagers who, like small towns or in other people's, want to tell them what they should do or shouldn't do, are telling the farmer this isn't good. Having this teenage child who isn't helping you is not good. And the farmer listens and he responds, could be good, could be bad, don't know. So a couple days go by and the teenager is up in the field playing and running around and finds a horse, brings the horse home, back to the farm. And all the villagers go to the farmer, farmer, this is great news. You now have a horse, can help you plow. This is wonderful. Farmer's kind of like, could be good, could be bad, don't know. A few days go by and the teenager's out in the corral trying to break the horse and train it. Gets on the horse and ends up getting thrown and breaks a leg. All the villagers go running out to the farmer's place. Oh, farmer, this is terrible news. This is horrible. Now you have a horse that can't be ridden, a teenager with a broken leg. This is bad. The farmer looks, he listens, and he responds, could be good, could be bad. I don't know. And a few days go by, and the military from this country comes in and takes all the able-bodied children off to war. And the farmer's child remains. And part of this is we don't know. We really don't know. And out of good things, bad things can happen. And out of bad things, good things can happen. We worked in schools after Harvey. And, for Houston ISD and a lot of our other districts across the state, schools were closed, homes were lost, families were displaced. And we were in this one particular school working with fourth graders. And these two boys came up with these smiling faces and said, because of Harvey, we found each other and we're best friends. One of the boys had lost his home and had been in his school had closed because of the flooding and had been relocated to another school in the district. And he and this other boy in fourth grade became best friends. And he said, this was wonderful. It's not always like that. But the moral of the story is we don't know. And so often we try to predict and determine something's going to be good or it's going to be bad. And what we want to learn to do is to be completely aware, staying present and accessing, instead of flipping of, oh, now I've got a child with a broken leg, flipping and saying, so what do I need to do? How do I get to this prefrontal cortex and think thoughtfully about the process and what I do next? And the term is equanimity. And it's one of the things when we start to become aware of our thoughts and our processes more and more, we can catch ourselves. For me, driving became a big thing of learning to drive and not get anxious. Of course, there's traffic. Of course, the train stops in the middle of rush hour when I'm running late for a meeting. All those things could be activation for me. And what I've learned to do is simply roll down the window, listen to music, and notice what's going on around me. Because there's nothing I can do. I could yell at the person in front of me. It's not going to help. I could yell at the train. Not going to help. It's not that I didn't used to do that. It's that I've learned to respond differently. So instead of reacting to things outside of me, I become more responsive for myself. So that's, there's a term that's sitting like a mountain. So regardless of the weather around us, and we all know we can't control the weather, it's being able to sit. And as someone said, people will look at you and think, oh, she's doing nothing. And yet what you're really doing is exercising that mind to be present, to be fully awake, fully aware, and noticing the thoughts that are coming and going. And just paying attention to that and notice, we're going to get into thoughts in week 5, I believe, or 6. We tell our things that we don't even know that they're really true. We think we can, make things up, and we don't know that they're true. We have judgments. Anybody ever have a friend walk by them without saying hello or hi or smiling? Yeah, I see nodding and thumbs up. Yeah. And, the thing immediately, what I would do is think, okay, what did I do wrong? Why isn't so-and-so talking to me? Why did she ignore me? Making it all about me and having, not even realizing she didn't see me or something happened. So, and part of this is knowing what happens to kids. If any of you are in the classroom or in the healthcare and have patients, we don't know. We think we know, but we don't. And so part of it is being open and curious and learning from people, maybe by listening instead of having our own thoughts that we want to say. And that was a tough one. I mean, impulse control for me was not easy. And I used to be rewarded for saying a lot of things that I shouldn't have. So learning and noticing, and this is about getting to know you as perfectly imperfect as each of us are. So that's equanimity. And it's learning to be, there's a term some people use surfing. It's just riding it and being aware of it. The other way I would offer is, the breath is like an anchor. So as a former sailor, anybody who boats knows that you can throw an anchor in rough waters. Above the water will be wavy and you could see wakes and this and that. And down below, the anchor is holding us steady. So our breath is one of the anchors we will practice with. We'll also begin to practice with sound next week and other areas of the body and being aware of our sensations. So one of the reasons we use the breath or sound and sensations in our body is because they're always present. Typically, our body is present in the moment. There are, and this is why I wanted to offer that, if at any time you get uncomfortable in a meditative practice, open your eyes, stand up, move, and notice where you are. So there are some things that can come up for people, and in the absence of seeing you, I can't do that. So I do want to make sure at any time if it's uncomfortable, do stop, open your eyes and move around and notice where you are. So I do want to look quickly. Also, the next thing that we do a lot in mindfulness is recognize gratitude. And I want to offer this to you the next time you sit down to eat. We're not going to do a mindful eating exercise here, but I want you to consider when you sit down to eat your next meal, is think about where the food came from. How it's packaged, even before the packaging. And I'll use grapes as an example. So if I were in person with you, we would be doing a practice around eating grapes. And what I can offer you is that my grandfather had a vineyard, a small one, and would, walk the grapes, the vines. He would smell the soil. He would touch the leaves. He would check the weather, even with his third grade education. He would think about what he needed to do, depending on the temperature. And then the harvesting would come and all his friends would come. We would help too, with care of snapping the grapes, filling our baskets, and loading them into a truck. And the truck went to the factory, and honestly, from there, I just know now from stories. But next time, if you eat grapes or cherries or whatever it is, think about all the people it took to get those grapes to you. Whether you buy them at the grocery store or you go to the farmer's market, wherever it is that the food comes to you, just look at it and take a moment to go backwards on the journey of what it took. And maybe think about all the people who have touched that food to make it happen so that you can have it. My colleague, Ann Friedman, who is the founder of Mindful Being and was my original teacher, went to Puerto Rico after their hurricane several years ago and did a practice. And there was a gentleman there that had never eaten a grape before. One, because they were too expensive for him. They're not grown in Puerto Rico. And so in order to afford a grape, it was just not reasonable. And so just knowing that there are people who, for me, I pop them like it's popcorn, I just eat them and keep going. But just think about your next meal, trying at least one bite, noticing and thinking about how the food was prepared, the people who brought it to you, and what it took. And as you begin to eat, Notice what it looks like. Notice the colors. Notice the texture of it. Notice the presentation. Maybe even smell it. Notice if there's a fragrance associated with it. I think of bread and that beautiful aroma of bread and fragrance. And pause. Pause and see how that helps you. There's a Vietnamese monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, and he says, when we eat, we should eat. When we walk, we should walk. When we drink our coffee, we should drink our coffee. Notice the flavors. If any of you are cooks, I can imagine how you feel when you cook a meal and somebody just wolfs it down. And you spent this time seasoning, preparing. So take a few moments and think about that. In addition to, the taste. So when you look at it, you smell it, then you're going to taste it. And notice how it feels in your mouth, whether you get moist, dry, whether you're wanting more. And then reality is, notice when it goes down. If you take a bite and you swallow it, for a grape, there's a whole new sensation, or a blueberry when you're slow and you just take one and you're paying attention to everything that's happening in your body, versus eating, as some of us have admitted, eating mindlessly. And it is stress eating. It's autopilot. It's getting out of the mode of just, I don't want to be anywhere else. I want just to be kind of on autopilot, eating something, crunching, maybe salty, maybe sugary, maybe sweet. We get lost. For some people, it used to be playing Candy Crush. I don't know what it is today. It could be other addictions, things that take us away from the moment because we don't want to deal with it. So what we want to do is become aware of these things and just notice the little things maybe. There is that thing of, stop and smell the roses. Last thing I want to reference when I was talking about the grapes and my grandfather and, all the people that it takes to get grapes to us in the grocery stores, and those neatly aired, bags with the holes in it, and they're clean. And, today there's so many different ones. But the sense of gratitude, so whether it's faith-based or whatever, but recognizing how lucky we are to have the food before us, and yes, we didn't get to leave the table until we ate everything. And I can't say I tasted it like I do now, but trying to slow down. So this is part of that informal practice. Right. So the formal practice is when we sit and we meditate and we, initially we're going to focus on our breath, and then we'll work on sound and sensations of the body. That's the formal part. The informal is learning to be present with what we're doing, with the people we're doing it, and having this equanimity. And part of what we can do is use our senses to wake us up. And then recognize all the good that may be around us. So the food we have, the people who prepared it, the research around gratitude, and some of you may be familiar with it already, is that and it was a study out of SMU on the practice, and the belief was, or the hypothesis was, that people of faiths, regardless of faith, it wasn't a specific religion that they were looking to study, but they were looking for people who were faith-based, and to find out if they were happier, if that faith had a huge piece of it. And what they learned it wasn't necessarily faith-based people, but people who had practiced gratitude and we're grateful for the things they have, regardless of the amount. If you've ever visited third world countries and seen people who are so happy in their homes that are shacks and living on dirt and have a few chickens, they have this sense of, look at what I have. So being able to pause and be grateful for what we currently have, whether it's the sense of smell, and especially during COVID, we realize that there are people who've had it, have lost a sense of smell and are still experiencing that. So for us to be able to have the sense of smell and smell flowers or smell the baking bread, can we recognize our gratitude for that? The sense of touch, the use of our hands or our feet. There are people who don't have sensations in their feet. So learning to be grateful. I was here with my sister a couple days, about a week ago, and it was raining all day and a little bit down on it. And I was, which drives her crazy. Sometimes I was like, well, it's good. It's raining. We need rain for our plants. We need rain for the soil. We need rain to refresh everything, to clean things. The animals need it. So thinking about shifting from the sense of what is it I don't have to what is it I have. So another practice, and things to dabble with between now and maybe Monday, if you join me on Monday, or next Wednesday for our next session, is, to practice the 3 breaths. And whether it's 3, 5, or the deep breathing, but notice the ability to shift from flipping your lid to accessing the prefrontal cortex and having this sense of, how do I want to respond? So stopping, taking the breath, observing, and then proceeding with whatever. Maybe it's sitting down with the next meal and at least trying for the first few bites to be present. Like, I want to taste this food. I want to smell it. I want to feel the texture of it. And I want to notice how the first bite is different than the second bite or the 5th bite. And maybe by the 5th, you've lost interest. I don't know. But just play with that. And then if you want, some people do gratitude journals. Some people wake up with a thought of gratitude. I like to stretch, and I love the fact that I can still feel my toes wiggle and my hands wiggle. And, even the fact that I have warm water and cold water. For some people through Texas, I believe there are still people without power. So if you're one of those people with power, recognizing the fact that I have power right now, and there are others who are in the same profession as I do that don't. So being able to practice gratitude is another way of practicing mindfulness. It's the informal process. So those are some things that I want to leave you with. And if you have questions and they weren't answered in this session, and I'm going to ask for a day or two before I get the handout to Jamie, who will make sure it's distributed. I'm going to invite you to join me for just a short, brief practice before we close. And then if there are comments or questions that you want to put out there, I'm happy to get them answered before our next class. So invite you now to find your seat. Might even just wiggle a little bit. Notice your neck. And I'm sure some of you are getting hungry and thinking about, or maybe the lessons that you need to prepare for tomorrow. So remember, just feeling your feet and moving up. letting your shoulders rest down your back. And again, closing your eyes if you're comfortable. And bring your mind's attention and focus to your breath. Maybe you're noticing it at the nostrils. Maybe you're feeling it in the chest as it rises, or deep in the belly. And then as it releases, this is becoming intimate with your body, knowing how it feels just to be present, nowhere to go, nothing to do, just for a few moments of breathing in and feeling the breath, maybe noticing the cool or the warm temperature, or the rise and the fall of the chest with the inhale and exhale. Noticing how the breath changes, not the same. Breath is always present, and the mind will drift into habit. We can be curious, and we can be open, aware of the present, and approach it with loving kindness, first for ourselves, and then for those around us. Staying slow and steady, completely aware. Could be good, could be bad, we don't know. Just listen, observe, and proceed. Grateful for the fact that we can have this breath again and again. Invite you slowly to roll your neck around, just gently, maybe feeling it loosening, just noticing how it feels. And take a deep breath into your belly, all the way down the chest and filling it, and then releasing it and joining me in this space. I want to thank all of you again for making time, especially for yourselves. The healthcare profession, education, you're on the front lines and serving so many people. And in order to keep doing it, taking care of yourself. And this is the practice. So I hope to have you back on Monday when we come back together for the practice. It will be a brief introduction, and then it will be more of just honestly this practice. So if it's a way and a gift that I can share with you, gratitude for you for joining me. Thank you all. I want to respect your time. Enjoy your next whatever it is. So be well, be kind, and take care of yourselves. I'll see you Monday. Thank you, Jamie, all of you.
Thank you.